Brian, you should come over to my apartment today. Selena, you know I can't. Brian, why? Selena, because my husband will wonder where I am. Brian, make up an excuse. Selena, why should I risk getting in trouble? For what? Brian, for the best sex you've ever had. Selena, you're too self-confident. I think this is empty talk. Brian, there's only one way to find out. I can't even begin to describe the feelings that were swirling in my stomach after reading those text messages. There aren't enough words in the English language to even come close to describing the tsunami of pain, anger, and castration torture that comes with realizing that the woman you love desires another man. A tidal wave tore up my shore and left my soul empty. I felt empty, as if something had been ripped out of my chest. My hands began to shake as I sat on the bed holding my wife's phone. I didn't even notice the tears welling up in my eyes until they started running down my face. I froze, unable to force my body to move. I don't know how long I sat there because time was warped. My marriage flashed before my eyes. The birth of my daughters, all the anniversaries, birthdays, Christmas, Valentine's Day, all these days in the 10 years I spent married to Selena flashed before me within a few seconds. I heard the water stop flowing in the bathroom adjacent to the master bedroom. Time moved again as I was brought back to the present. On the other side of that door, I mentally saw my wife wiping the water off her body with a towel. Normally, the thought alone would have made it harder than seeing it in person, but at the moment, my lust was suppressed. I knew I had, at best, 5 minutes to collect myself and process what I had just witnessed. Today, it all started like any other evening. I returned from work at 5:30 in the evening, as always. Selena wasn't home yet. It didn't set off any alarm bells or anything. She usually doesn't get home from the hospital until around 7. I entered the house through the side door leading to the kitchen, went to the refrigerator, grabbed a soda, opened it, and headed into the living room, enjoying the wonderful fizz that tickled my throat. My 15-year-old niece was talking on her cell phone, absent-mindedly flipping through channels. Chelsea is my older sister's only child. She really is a good girl. She has the typical attitude of teenagers who think they know more about life than their parents. Otherwise, she's great. She does not use illegal substances, does not drink, and does not consider it her duty to sleep with every man in the area. When I entered, I watched her. She was very animated and excited as she spoke into the phone. Everything changed when she saw me. Suddenly, everything became quiet. She quickly whispered that she had to go and ended the call. I laughed to myself when I realized that I might have walked into the middle of one of her top-secret phone conversations. The way she and her friends talk in whispers on the phone, you'd think they were government spy agents. "Hey, Chels, where are the girls?" I asked her. Before she could respond, I heard a loud crash overhead as a pair of small feet scurried down the stairs. Once at the bottom, the little girl jumped at me, jumping into the air, absolutely sure that she would not fall to the ground. "Papa!" My youngest, Gabrielle, screamed as I caught her and picked her up. She pecked me on the cheek with her little lips and wrapped her arms around my neck. I knew the next words that would come out of her mouth before she even said them. These were the same words that she always immediately said to me when I returned home. "I want to eat." My eldest daughter, Cassandra, quietly came down the stairs and shuffled towards me, wrapping her arms around my legs. "Hi, Daddy," she said quietly. Even though she wasn't as vocal as Gabby, I knew Cassie missed me too. It's funny how they are so different. I nodded approvingly at Chelsea, letting her know that she could now go home. I handed her the money I owed for the week and thanked her. "Bye, Uncle Tony," she said, kissing me on the cheek. My older sister lived just a block away, so I didn't have to take Chelsea home. I heard the side door close and knew she was gone. I didn't feel like cooking, so I ordered 2 pizzas. The girls ate greedily and left for the rest of the evening. When Selena came into the house at 7 o'clock, I was sitting on the couch in front of the TV, working on my laptop. I think that working on my laptop is not that difficult. She came in, gave me the standard hello kiss, kicked off her shoes, and sat down next to me. I pushed the laptop aside, grabbed her legs, and started massaging them while we had a light conversation about our day. About 10 minutes later, she disappeared into the kitchen to get her pizza slices. Sounds like a normal evening, right? And so it was. Just like every evening before this. This was our cozy routine. The rest of the evening remained the same until the girls went to bed and Selena went to take a shower. I heard her phone ring on the nightstand, signaling a message. Without thinking, I grabbed the phone with mild curiosity. I figured it was probably from her sister or one of her friends. Imagine my surprise when I saw an intimate photo of a guy and the words, "Here's what you missed." After recovering from the blow to the stomach, I looked through the rest of the messages from this number, which was in her contact list under the name Brian. The ones I mentioned at the beginning were from today. Based on the timestamps, they were passed back and forth while she was driving home from work. These were the most recent, but there were actually many more. Her phone memory can hold 200 SMS messages. Their negotiations had filled that 200 limit in just the last week. It was obvious that the two corresponded frequently. Their comfort level indicated that they had been doing this for quite some time. As I looked through the messages over the last week, I began to realize that this sexual banter was the norm in their conversations. I couldn't fully read them all, but there was one more dialogue that stuck out to me. The messages from a couple of days ago were, "Brian, it was hard for me to see you leaving me as you left the cafe. Selena, I know it's hard. I saw it. Brian, did you really see that? Selena, of course you can't hide something that big. Brian, but you can. Selena, you're so bad." I sat there trying to collect my thoughts and force my brain to think clearly. I only had a few minutes to think it over. When the bathroom door opens, my entire life, my marriage, my fucking sanity will depend on whatever the hell comes out of that bitch's mouth. The door opened, and Selena came out. The steam filling the bathroom made it seem like it was just a dream. She was wearing one of my t-shirts and cotton panties. For a second, I forgot about the text message. I swear to God, Nike should pay her for making their jersey look so good. She walked blithely towards the bed. I don't know if I was just angry or what, but something made her stop. Her eyes widened, and a look of horror appeared on her face. Her mouth was open in shock. I realized that she was not looking at my face. She looks at my hands, more precisely, on your phone in my hands. We remained in gloomy silence until the reality of our situation settled in the room. She realized that I knew everything. Neither of us said a word. I looked into her eyes and saw them darting from the phone to my face. There was no mistake in what was on my mind. Since she wasn't going to say anything, I decided to start. I just threw out the bait with the most obvious question. "Selena, who is Brian?" The question sounded surprisingly calm even. I even seemed calm. It was a complete contradiction to how I felt. It hung in the air as her lips trembled. It's just a guy I work with." "Why are you asking? Why?" Did this bitch just ask why? Now, in addition to being hurt, my intelligence was insulted. "What the fuck do you think why, Selena?" I spat at her. The calmness disappeared, replaced by a voice full of amusement and venom. I didn't exactly shout, but the harsh tone let her know that the ice she was standing on was paper thin. "There's nothing special about him. He is just a nurse working with me." She still didn't move from her place. She stood tense and motionless. Her face told me what was going on inside her. It told me about her fear and guilt. I chuckled. "Nothing special?" I repeated sarcastically. I stood up and walked around the room with the phone in my hand. "Nothing special." As I paced back and forth, I felt anger rising within me. It bubbled in my stomach. I felt it rising in my throat like vomit. It was white hot and began to consume me. Finally, before I realized what I was doing, I threw the phone as hard as I could in her direction. I didn't try to hit it. I swear to God it's not like that. I didn't mean to throw the phone at her. Well, maybe only subconsciously. I was very angry. Luckily for both of us, It flew past her and hit the wall behind her. When he finally landed on the floor, he was broken into 3 pieces. She looked at her broken phone again and then turned to me. For the first time in her life, she looked at me with genuine fear. Baby, you need to calm down. Tony, we need to talk before you do something we'll both regret, she said in a pleading voice, holding her hands out in front of her. She slowly backed away from me, defensive and looking like a child about to get a spanking. Selena, you better stop fucking lying to me and start talking. Who is Brian? I asked again. I emphasized every word in the question, closing the distance between us. By the time I spat out his name, I was already screaming. She recoiled in fear and burst into loud sobs. I did not console her. I stood silently, looking at her, waiting for an answer. If she's afraid of me, that means she's a lot smarter than she was when she sent messages to that asshole. I'm not lying, she said between sobs. He's a nurse working with me on my floor. I noticed that she very opportunely decided to exclude the statement "nothing special" from her answer. I took a step back and sat on the bed. I had to take control of myself. I was shaking with rage. There's no way I'll get answers that way. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and pinched the bridge of my nose with my thumb and forefinger. In the background, I could hear Selena still crying. I collected my emotions and took back control of the conversation. After a few seconds, I decided to try a different approach. Are you sleeping with him? I asked. My voice became even again. After hearing the question, it took her a few seconds to stop crying. She looked at me with eyes full of tears when these words reached her. Then I saw the look of disbelief on her face. Oh my God, no, I am not sleeping with him. The words came out of her mouth with disgust, as if they tasted bad. She even had the self-control to look at me incredulously, as if I was delusional in asking her this. I studied her reaction. She seemed genuinely shocked by my question. I didn't notice the lie. A feeling of relief came over me. I really believed her. There was no way she could fake her initial reaction to a direct question. Selena is a very smart woman, but not such a good actress. Additionally, the text, "There's only one way to find out," indicated that they hadn't actually tumbled yet. I believed her reaction on this one point. But there was no way she was going to let herself off the hook that easily. Then explain what I just read. And again, a feeling of guilt was reflected on her face. Brian and we just flirt sometimes in the evenings. You know, sometimes it's hard to get through the evening. She found herself remembering the text about how it was hard to see her go. This did not escape me. It just helps the evening go faster. It's completely innocent. It doesn't mean anything. Selena, if everything is so innocent, then why did he invite you to come to his house for the best sex you've ever had? As soon as these words left my lips, another terrible thought came into my head. Are you telling him about what we do in the bedroom? Are you sitting with him and throwing mud at me? And again an expression of disbelief appeared on her face. Then she ran up to me and grabbed my hand. Baby, no, I will never disrespect you like that. Please, you have to believe me. Words poured out of her, begging her to be believed. She kissed my hand and placed it on her cheek. I felt her tears on my palm. Please, Tony, I'm really sorry. I pulled my hand away. She looked so hurt when I pulled away from her. The pain on her face would make me move heaven and earth to remove her. 15 minutes ago. Now she filled me with painful pleasure. Do you really think that sending another man messages about how great his dignity is respect for me? You've already disrespected me, Selena. I started pacing around the room again. Why did he decide that being with him means the best sex of your life? They were just innocent jokes, Tony. We were just playing. Everything was completely innocent, and he knows it. I looked at her in stunned amazement. This woman was the smartest person I know. She can't be that stupid. I crossed the room so quickly that she flinched. She might have thought that I was walking towards her, but I was walking past. I picked up 3 pieces of her phone and saw that the only thing that had fallen apart was the battery compartment. I prayed to God that the phone would still work. I needed to poke some holes in this explanation. She watched me collect the phone and tears streamed down her face. I couldn't tell what she was thinking. At that moment, I didn't care. My only concern was getting this phone to turn on. God must have listened to me because when I assembled the phone and turned it on, it booted up immediately. We sat silently and waited. She looked at me through tears with uncertainty in her eyes. I'm sure she was embarrassed that I was no longer focused on her at the moment. Finally, I was able to get the SMS. I pulled out the last message and picture that set everything in motion. Since they appeared while she was in the shower, she hasn't seen them yet. I held the phone in front of me so she could look. If everything is so innocent, Selena, then why is he sending you a photo of his private part, which supposedly captivated you so much? Looking at the image on the screen, she raised her hand to her mouth. Her breath caught in her throat, and the tears started flowing for real. She didn't even pick up the phone from me. She closed her eyes and knocked it out of my hands. I don't want to see this anymore. Get this away from me, she shouted, running out of the room. I sat down on the bed again and thought, well, she didn't sleep with him. I believe that. But because of this, I still couldn't feel good. Even though they hadn't had sex yet, I couldn't help but think that if I hadn't found out about it, they might have. She says it was all completely innocent, but this is complete nonsense. These weren't innocent messages sent between two people who weren't attracted to each other. These text messages were an escalating form of foreplay between two people harboring illicit thoughts. The fact that she mentioned his large private area let me know that she was at least thinking about it. And then this asshole decided to up the ante and send her a photo. What if I hadn't seen her? How would she react if I was still in the dark? Would she have reacted with the same disgust or excitement? Would she send him a photo of herself in return? Selena never came upstairs that evening, and I didn't go down to see her. I just curled up on the bed and fell into a shallow, fitful sleep. I had more questions than answers, but I was too exhausted to do anything. The next morning, I was torn from sleep by the incessant whine of my alarm clock. I groaned as I pressed the off button with more force than I intended. God, I felt like crap. Have you ever woken up the morning after a particularly nasty fight with your spouse with this feeling of unknown melancholy? When you can't remember exactly what the fight was about, but you remember that you should be angry. That's how I felt. I felt like crap. My head felt heavy and I could barely keep my eyes open. Although I had just woken up, it seemed to me that I had not slept a wink. Then I noticed that I was unusually cold. The fact that I was shaking seemed strange to me. As I looked around, two realities caught my attention. First of all, last night when I went to bed, I didn't even get under the covers. Second, Selena did not sleep in bed last night. It was not unusual that by the time I got up in the morning, Selena was gone. Her schedule was a little busier than mine. She worked 10-hour shifts 4 days a week at the hospital. There were no predetermined days for her work. Her schedule depended on the floor manager and had to be checked daily. She had to be there at 8 in the morning and work until 6 in the evening. Before finishing her shift, she had to hand it over to the shift nurses, rarely leaving the hospital before 6:30 in the evening. However, the fact that she was not with me was not unusual. What was unusual was that her side of the bed was unusually cold and untouched. Even when she left me for work, her warmth remained there. The sheets had a wrinkled look that let me know that this place had recently been occupied by my loving wife. It was something like an unspoken promise of her return. She left, but only for a while. Like I said, I couldn't remember exactly why I was supposed to be upset. That is, until he saw her phone on the floor. It lay in the same place where it had fallen last night, having been knocked out of my hands by her when she ran out of the room in tears. Suddenly, memories of the previous evening came upon me, flooding in with crystal clarity. This terrible picture was imprinted in the cortex of my brain. It is unlikely that I will ever forget her. And again, the same tornado that was spinning in my stomach the previous evening was raging inside me. I thought I was going to throw up, but there was nothing in my stomach that could be thrown up. I slowly got out of bed and forced myself to push these thoughts away. I was behind on my morning routine. You see, we usually have a morning routine. They're like cogs in a well-oiled machine. After years of improvement, it is now so flawless that it practically works on its own. To begin with, I woke up the girls every morning. In fact, I woke them up 10 minutes before it was time for them to get up. I thought this was the grace period they needed to be more efficient in their preparation. It's all about the child's psyche. No matter what time they are woken up, they always need 10 more minutes. If they have those 10 minutes, they will jump out of bed and be ready with amazing speed. If I don't give them those 10 minutes, then I'll have to fight tooth and nail to get them ready on time. They drag their feet, whine, and complain about how tired they are. Since I started waking them up 10 minutes earlier, they were no longer distracted. They felt satisfied to have extra minutes, not knowing that they actually didn't have any. And we are all happy. Since Selena left before me in the mornings, the job of getting them ready for school became mine by default. However, I didn't mind. I still had to get up at this time because I was leaving for work right after their bus. As soon as the girls got up, all three of us got ready at the same time. As soon as everyone was ready, we went down to the kitchen together to have breakfast. Breakfast usually consisted of cereal for the girls and coffee for me. As a rule, Selena has already cooked it when preparing it for herself. She brewed a whole pot of coffee, knowing that soon I would need it too. As I said before, gears in a well-oiled machine. The routine practically moved on its own. This morning was no different, except, of course, for the heart ripped out of the chest. But the show must go on. Once I got up and started everything, I went back to my room to get ready for work. I was operating on autopilot. I did what I did every morning, almost without thinking. Honestly, I'm surprised I was able to get fully dressed. Things went swimmingly. The girls and I were dressed and headed downstairs to the kitchen. That's when we got our surprise, and it reminded me that this morning was unlike any other. My wife was sitting at the table with a cup of coffee in her hands. We all stopped, surprised. The fact that my wife had never been here in the morning made this morning anomalous. Even on days when she didn't work, she still snored upstairs. So, seeing her sitting at the table was something that made it clear that this morning was not as standard as all the others. The second surprise was how she looked. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hair was a mess. She was pale, and her face was stained with tears. She looked like she hadn't slept a wink all night. "Mommy?" Cassie said the word as if it were a question. Selena's appearance was alarming. These were no longer the mother and wife we were used to. Selena was always collected. She always controlled herself. This shell of a woman was an aberration. It was as if Santa Claus was smoking a fat cigarette behind the shopping center during his break. Cassie couldn't help but notice that something was wrong. Selena looked at our confused faces and quickly came to her senses. "Good morning, Pumpkin," she said, holding out her arms, trying to sound cheerful. But there's something about sniffling while talking that takes the wind out of the sail. Cassie walked up to her and hugged her. "Mom was sick today. I called and said that I would stay at home to find out what was going on," she said as her eyes met mine. I didn't miss the double meaning of her words. Fortunately, this explanation seemed to calm my naive daughter. Although Selena almost never got sick, Cassie and Gabby chose to ignore this fact. They took it on faith that everything was fine, even if it was a little unusual. The morning routine followed without further interruption, at least from the children's point of view. Selena continued to glance in my direction as if trying to gauge my mood. I actively ignored her presence. I drank my morning coffee and read the newspaper as if it wasn't there, or at least he pretended to be. I know I was being childish, pretending she wasn't in the room, but damn it, in my defense, I'll say that she started it. I just wasn't ready to confront her yet. Looking at her reminded me of how much I loved her, and it ironically reminded me of how much I hated her. We heard the warning sound of a school bus brake outside. "Bye, Daddy. Bye, Mommy," my daughters screamed as their little bodies flew out the side door. That's how we were left alone. We sat in silence until the sound of a departing school bus broke the silence. The only sounds came from the rustling of the newspaper and my sips of coffee. Finally, I had enough. "Well, I'm off." I tried to sound casual as I collected the girls' cereal bowls and put them in the dishwasher. I wanted to hide in the sanctuary of work. However, as always, my wife was 3 steps ahead of me. "I've already said on your behalf that you're sick. I told Tom you had a fever and had been throwing up all night. He told me to tell you to get better and to call if you were away for more than one day. She took a sip of her coffee and looked at me, waiting for an answer. Why the hell did you do that? Even as the words left my lips, I realized how stupid the question was. She answered, although it was obvious. We need to talk, Selena. How could I get myself into this shit? Damn it, Brian. Do you really have the nerve to send me an intimate photo? I think I need to fill in some gaps here. This may provide a better understanding of how we got to where we are now. I'm about 65 meters tall. I'm not going to tell you my weight. Let me just let you know that I am very athletic and have been since I was in high school. I have always kept myself in good shape. All my life I've always been considered a pretty chick. I have dark brown hair, green eyes, and an olive complexion. My breasts are quite average and my waist is thin. My hips curve and drop down, becoming two-toned, muscular legs. My ass, which most men seem to like, sticks out behind me like a teasing dome. It's not the big classic butt you see in porn or rap videos, but it is round and graceful. I played most of the sports my school allowed girls. I was even a cheerleader for a while. My favorite sport was football. Participating in so many events has made popularity a normal way of my life. It didn't hurt that most guys lusted after me. So, being as athletic and quite good-looking as I am, I've always been attracted to athletic guys. Sorry, guys, but that's just how the universe works. Hot girls love hot guys. I've never been into larger-than-life guys like the Hulk, but the abs and tall, lean figure would make me wet in a matter of seconds. Unfortunately, God has a sense of humor. In creating guys like that, I think he had to create some sort of balance. Guys in such a pretty package usually turn out to be self-centered jerks who can't be satisfied with just one woman. No matter how much you do for them, they are always looking for more, or at least more variety. Oh, trying to get into your mini-skirt, they all smile and compliment you. But as soon as he gets what he wants, this nice guy disappears and is replaced by his stupid twin. So when I got to college, I naturally started dating athletes. If you are not an athlete, then I was not interested. I quickly discovered that behind all those jumping shots and landings were egos the size of Kanye West. I went through college dating one asshole after another until I finally settled with guys. I even tried to become a girl lover, but it didn't help. One drunken kiss during a game of truth or dare made it clear that I needed a man to get horny. By my senior year, I had completely stopped trying to find anyone. I focused on studying and maintaining my grades. I wanted to create a community of the best students. It would basically coincide with the top list of the dean's office, only for nurses. It would increase opportunities when applying for nursing jobs straight out of college. But then fate intervened in the form of a blind date. My roommate Chandra met a guy online, and he wanted to meet her in person. For several months, they chatted and sent each other photos. After she sent him a bikini photo, he said he needed to meet her face-to-face. Naturally, being cautious, she didn't want to go on the first date alone and told him that she would have to bring her single friend because she was going through hard times and couldn't stand being alone. Being thoughtful, the guy replied that he would also bring a friend. This way, the poor, lonely girl will have at least some company. This would give them some time to get to know each other. The lonely friend she wanted to bring with her was me. Of course, this whole story was complete crap. We didn't have any special plans, and I would have been more than happy to have a rare, quiet evening to myself. I didn't even know about the meeting until she asked me to come with her, after she told this guy that I was coming. After much persuasion and pestering, I finally agreed. I was not happy about this evening. I had an exam in a few days, and I wanted to study a little. Luckily for her, I respected the girl code and didn't want to leave her. I decided that we would meet these guys, eat for free, and have an excuse ready if she wanted to escape a terrible evening. Arriving at the cinema, we looked around until we saw the guy she was waiting for. When I saw him, I understood why she was so eager to meet him. He was exactly the one I would have chosen. Tall, tanned, and well-built. On the other hand, his friend was someone I wouldn't even look at. Yes, he was an average nice guy, but still average. I had no doubt that he was capable of making some girl happy, but not me. I don't want to say I was out of his league, but it's funny how you never think of yourself as a shallow person until you look back. If I saw these two guys standing side by side, and I had to choose between them, I would choose the one who came on a date with Chandra. And how wrong I would have been. I didn't really expect to have a good time. I decided that I would play by the rules, be as nice to my date as possible, and keep him busy long enough for Chandra to reach an agreement. Come to think of it, that was probably his plan too. I mean, at the end of the day, he was only here to keep me company because I was supposed to be taken care of. To be honest, I didn't expect to meet him again. At least that was the plan. But you know what they say about the best laid plans, right? In this regard, Tony became the main obstacle. It only took me 10 minutes of talking to him to decide that I liked him. No, I was not ready to drag him into the bathroom and humiliate myself to a stall. But I liked talking to him. He was so funny. I don't say funny as a stand-up comedian. He was simply witty and easy to talk to. He had a sarcastic humor that was dry and light-hearted, but delivered in a way that wasn't boring. There was something casual about him that drew me into his universe. The conversation with him flowed so easily that I completely forgot about Chandra and her companion. Before I knew it, I told him my whole life story. Speaking of Chandra's boyfriend, did I mention that packaged guys tend to be complete assholes? This one was no different. In fact, I think God went overboard in creating this particular guy. Every sentence that came out of his mouth was full of sexual innuendo. Every time he talked to Chandra, it was like he was making a case for why they should end up hooking up. I looked into Chandra's eyes and realized that this evening was not going at all as she expected. She even signaled to me that it was time to give my excuses for leaving. Her eyes begged me to stop this evening's farce. Unfortunately for her, I was having the time of my life and I wasn't ready to leave yet. I've never felt so comfortable with a guy, ever. So I ignored her subtle hints and left her to my own devices. Damn it, it's her fault I'm even here. In the end, despite all my delays, the evening ended. Chandra's date ended with her heading home, allowing a timid kiss on the cheek and an empty promise to repeat. Tony didn't ask me for my number. I took his phone myself and dialed the number on it. I even made him promise to call me the next day. This was a big step for me. I don't usually set out to pursue guys, so I'm usually not that pushy. I've never had to do this before. But throughout the day, I gave all my subtle signals that I am available, and he showed no signs of reaching an agreement. I was worried that he wouldn't dare open up, so I bypassed normal protocol and made it clear. When that didn't work, I just grabbed his phone and did everything for him. Regardless of whether we ended up together or not, I wanted him in my life. Well, if you quickly look through all this boring stuff, we soon became much more than just friends. When I graduated from college, passed the National Board of Licensing exam, and became a registered nurse, we moved in together. Several years ago, he graduated from another college with a degree in computer science. As fate would have it, he was hired by a company located right on the same street as the hospital, where I eventually ended up working. When I met him, he had been working there for about a year. We dated until the end of my senior year and lived together for 6 months before he proposed to me. 6 months after that, we got married. At this moment, I have to say that I am head over heels in love with my husband. I feel like I have to say this now because as the story goes on, this point may get lost. I love my husband and would never trade him for anything in the world. He is a great father, a great husband, and just a good lover. I found out how good a lover he was on our third date. Until that evening, I wasn't even sure if I wanted this guy to be my boyfriend. Yes, we had great chemistry, but physically he was still not my type. Everything changed that evening when we sat at his house and listened to music. We had another great date, and I was a little tipsy. Suddenly we just disappeared into each other. We kissed, and our clothes disappeared. Then he showed me what sex really was. The sex was just great. I won't say that after that first time I fell in love with him, but I knew that I wanted him more than a friend. He was my boyfriend, and I was his girlfriend. In the end, I still fell in love with him, and we got married. So why did a woman in love with her husband find herself in such a situation right now? Well, there's no way to answer this question without looking bad, so I can be honest. I just love attention. At the risk of sounding arrogant or vain, I will say, it is no secret that I am very attractive and always have been. Being like that, I'm used to getting a certain amount of attention from guys. Even when I wasn't dating, I still attracted attention. Guys still asked me out. They always flirted with me, approached me, wooed me, trying to break through the built wall. I didn't realize it at the time, but I actually liked that they were after me, even though it was more of a chance for them to have a snowball fight in hell. It became a game that I was playing without really realizing it. On a subconscious level, I even liked to push them to the edge, giving them a minimal amount of hope just to stay far enough away to still be out of reach. Over the course of our marriage, we fell into routines. Everything that happened in our lives was exactly the same as the day before. We were in a real Groundhog Day. I'm not saying my life was terrible or boring. She was predictable. Plus, I wasn't as fit as I was in college. After I had our second girl, I was unable to get my body back into shape like before. How movie stars do it is beyond me. I still had the body that women envied, but it wasn't the same. When you get used to being like me, you notice every kilogram. However, my confidence was not sky high. Tony still found me very beautiful, or so he said. But I saw that I was no longer surprising him. We still have sex regularly, but he never attacks me anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? He doesn't want me anymore. I never talked about it because I didn't realize I felt that way. I simply brushed aside these nagging and remembered that I have a husband who loves me. But they were always there, beneath the surface. So fast forward a decade, and we come to Brian. To be honest, I will say that Brian is a girl's blue dream. Physically, he was everything a woman could want. Tall, with dark curly hair. He had a smile that made even the nun's panties melt. His body, oh God. Before becoming a nurse, he served in the Marines. He was a medic, to be precise. He spent 8 years in the Marines, got out of the service, and went to college to stay in the job he knew so well. Like I said, Brian was everything a girl could want, but he knew it. With this knowledge, inevitably came an attitude of being a jerk. He wasn't rude or anything like that. He was simply completely and unequivocally head over heels in love with one single person, Brian. Honestly, I feel like I was the only nurse he didn't sleep with. Perhaps this is what attracted him. Another nurse named Wilma works with me. I swear this woman would have attacked Brian right in the middle of the hospital room. And if he had asked, then in front of her husband. When Brian showed up, she always had that schoolgirl hero-worshipping look. I share her admiration for his appearance. He is a wonderful type. But as far as I am concerned, that's all. So, repeating the question that I know you guys are asking. Why would a woman who is so in love with her husband risk her marriage to talk dirty to an asshole she doesn't even think about having sex with? It strengthens my ego. When Brian started hitting on me, I knew what he wanted. I've flirted with him often enough to know what he says and, more importantly, what he doesn't say. At first, everything was innocent. The old feeling returned to me. Well, what I had in college. I felt energetic again. I felt attractive and alive. Honestly, I didn't think there was any risk to my marriage. I didn't intend to sleep with him. It was all in jest. I loved that he pursued me and went out of his way to talk. Yes, I still love Tony, but I also like to feel sexy. So I teased him mercilessly. I always gave him just enough to make him feel like he had a chance if he stuck it out long enough, but I never gave him the green light to move on. Gradually, the flirting became less subtle and more frank. He pushed and pushed, always trying to raise the stakes. When he tried to get physical, I pushed him away, but I always left enough hope for him to feel that I was on the edge. This made him come back again and again. He was a great booster for my ego, and I loved it. Therefore, even though I knew what he wanted, I allowed it and shamelessly flirts back. I didn't even realize how bad it was until Tony showed me Brian's last message. Crap! Why did he do this? The answer is simple. Because he's a smug asshole. When I started the game, I knew this. I guess I teased him for so long that he got tired of it and felt like he needed to step it up a notch. I never thought it would go this far, But here we are. Now I have 3 problems left. First, how to make Tony understand that I love him more than anything in the world. Second, how to get Tony to understand that I'm not actually going to sleep with Brian, or anyone else for that matter. Third, how to get Tony to not walk out of this door and not leave my life. Tony. We both sat at the kitchen table in awkward silence. I could even hear the second hand ticking on the living room clock. We sat a meter apart from each other, but you would have thought that we were in different time zones. Her eyes couldn't meet mine, and I still pretended she wasn't there. I had the feeling that she was trying to probe me. What is true because that is exactly what I did. It was as if we were 2 boxers circling each other in the ring. We looked for signs of weakness in our opponent, trying to time our attacks. Neither of us wanted to strike first. We wanted to be able to see what our enemy had so we could counterattack effectively. She started first, but if this had been a boxing match, she would definitely have thrown a surprise punch and left me stunned. I thought I knew what to expect from her, but what I got threw me back into my corner. You scared me last night. You really did it. I've never seen you so angry. When you threw my phone at me, I honestly thought you were going to hurt me. No one has ever scared me so much. She fell silent, sniffling, and I saw that she was about to cry. I was afraid to sleep in my own bed, she said in a voice that was barely louder than a whisper. She put her coffee down and wiped her nose with the t-shirt she was wearing. I finally looked at her and my heart broke. No matter what she did, I didn't want her to see me as a monster. I wanted to shake her, but not to the point where she would be afraid that I would hurt her in the middle of the evening. I imagined her cowering on the sofa, flinching at every sound, because she was sure that I would go downstairs to vent my anger. The image made me feel sick and ashamed. I couldn't think of what to say next. To be honest, part of me felt justified in scaring the crap out of her, but at the same time, I was worried about the level of anger that I had. I've lost control. When I threw the phone at her, all I needed was for it to fly a few centimeters to the right. Then this situation would be completely different, maybe even irreparable. I'd go to jail for assault. This would lead to a number of undesirable consequences. I would have lost my job, my family would have lashed out at me, my children would have found out that their parents were not okay, and our marriage would have taken a different shape altogether. Thank God for small miracles. She's not finished yet. She looked into my eyes. Her behavior changed. The fear she had shown dissipated and gave way to determination and determination. I understand that you were shocked and hurt by what happened, what you found. You had every right to be upset. I see it. Honestly, if you had kicked my ass and sent me to my sister, I'd have no one to blame but myself. She paused for a moment to show me the full force of her next statement. But if you ever make me that afraid again? She didn't even finish her sentence, but there was no need to. The look in her eyes conveyed the rest of the message. I still haven't said a word. I didn't have the ones that were supposed to pour out yet. I switched between being the justifiably wronged party and a remorseful husband, regretting hurting his wife. I'm sure she saw this conflict. Her face softened. She reached across the table and grabbed my hands. Her thumbs gently stroked my knuckles. I didn't grab them. Her touch was reassuring and let me know that my outburst last night had not changed her opinion of me. This certainly cheered her up, because she smiled slightly. Then her face changed. It clouded over and became serious again. I want you to know that I had no intention of having sex with Brian. Now it was my turn to look determined. I didn't need to speak to let her know that last statement was complete nonsense. I know that you don't believe me. There's no way I can prove it now. But you have to trust me. I love you too much to ever do that. I would never... That's all she had time to say before I got up from the table and left. I headed upstairs to the bedroom. I don't know why I went there. Hell, I had the car keys in my hand and I was fully dressed. If I really wanted to leave her, I would just walk out the door. She would have to make a choice between following me in a t-shirt that barely covered her ass and panties, or letting me go. But in retrospect, it's obvious, right? I saw that she was following me. I heard her voice behind me and realized that she was still talking while I was retreating. Unfortunately, I didn't need any nonsense. She could have had a more fruitful conversation with me by speaking Chinese. I turned around and looked into her face. I did it so quickly that she almost ran into me. I stared at her and snorted like a bull at a matador. She stopped her tirade mid-sentence and stared at me. "Selena, you told me that you never wanted to be afraid of me again and that I should never make you feel like I was going to hurt you. But now I have to be honest. I literally have visions of me wrapping my fingers around your neck to shut up your lying mouth. If you don't want to have to use the threat you made earlier, then give me some time until I figure out how to talk to you without leaving my children without parents. In the meantime, I suggest you figure out how to say what you want to say without lying." With these words, I hit her on the ass. Metaphorically, of course. As she stood there in stunned silence, I imagined the judge starting the count. I entered the room and slammed the door behind me. Whenever I need advice, I always call my older sister. I think that besides Selena, she is the smartest woman on the planet. She never misbehaved. "Budget management. This is Tammy. How can I help you?" "Tam, it's me." "Hey, bro, are you having a day off today? Usually you don't call me from work." "Yeah, I was recalled." We both sat in silence for some time. The consequences of my absence from work were much more serious than one might expect. I never stayed home unless I took a vacation. I didn't take sick leave. One day, I came to work with a temperature of 38.3. So my sister, who knows me almost as well as my wife, realized that something was wrong. "Tell me, Tony, what's the matter?" I spent the next 10 minutes like that. I told her about all the text messages I found. I even told her about the photo. Naturally, I let go of the part of me that tried to decapitate my wife with the phone. She didn't interrupt me until I finished. "So, you talked to her?" "Something like that." "What do you mean, sort of?" "Well, we tried to talk, but then she started lying and everything went wrong." "What did she say when she started lying?" "She said she never intended to sleep with him. She said it was just innocent flirting. He says he loves me. You know, all the things a lying fool would say to cover her tracks." "Lying fool? Wow, you're crazy. Just don't do anything stupid, Tony. You know how you can mess up your character crap." I had to tone it down a little. I still wanted her to be on my side. "What else did she say?" "Well, that's all we managed to find out." "She didn't say anything about him?" "No, we didn't go that far." "Uh-huh." And silence again. "How do you know that she is lying?" "Because this bitch told him how big his private place is. He suggested that she go to his house and come up with an excuse for her idiot cuckold husband. She said she wanted to go to his house. Honestly, I couldn't remember. I grabbed her phone and started looking through her messages. I was a little surprised that I couldn't find a message that gave me concrete proof that she was going to have sex with him. Well, she didn't say it in words, but it can't be that they went back and forth just like that, without the intention of sleeping. Just because I don't see fire doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I see a hell of a lot of smoke and feel a hell of a lot of heat. I took a moment to mentally pat myself on the back for my clever paraphrase of a famous colloquialism. This made no impression on my sister. Cute. Well, you can sit there and continue to get burned by your invisible fire, or you can grab a fire extinguisher and start putting it out. You won't know if she's telling the truth until you let her finish what she wanted to say. So you're on her side? Don't be stupid. I'm on your side. I just want you to make decisions based on information and not anger. You don't want to make the situation worse than it needs to be. I say pull yourself together and go talk about it. Find out all the information before you act. You want to remain the offended party in this matter. Thus, everything that happens from this moment will be your decision. If you, being the bad guy, give her a trump card that frees her from guilt, things can get out of your control. Of course she was right. That's why I called her, my big sister, my Master Yoda. We talked for another 10 minutes or so. I realized that in order to move on from this place, I had to know the whole story. To do this, I will have to sit down and suffer through this lies and my wife's explanation of what happened. With renewed determination, I hung up and went downstairs. When I reached the bottom landing, I heard squelching noises coming from the living room. When I got there, I saw Selena curled up on the couch. Lumps of used napkins littered the floor around here. My heart went out to her, but I did not allow my face to thaw. I needed to remain objective. I sat down opposite her on the sofa and calmed down before speaking. She straightened up and looked at me with worried eyes but remained silent and waited for me to take the initiative. I need to understand what I see, Selena. To do this, I need you to stop repeating this nonsense and be honest with me. As bad as it sounds, I need the truth. I was relieved to find that my voice was calm and even a little inviting. I wanted her to feel comfortable enough to tell the truth without fear of me blowing up. She didn't answer, just nodded. I felt a little more confident about where this conversation was going and started with the obvious. Why did you need to send an SMS to a guy with whom you had no intention of having sex? She wiped her nose with a napkin. Because I liked teasing him. Wow, the answer couldn't be more honest. He's so smug. He walks around the hospital as if he could get any woman into bed. It's fun to pull his strings. He is so confident in himself that he constantly seeks out new ones. Sounds plausible enough, but I still felt there was more to it. I dived a little deeper. Are you attracted to him? She hesitated for a moment, and my heart sank, but I didn't say anything. Physically, yes, he is attractive, but that's not enough to make me want to sleep with him. Fine. Not exactly what I wanted to hear, but it wasn't a revelation either. I realized that on some level she was attracted to him. I guess I just asked this question to gauge where we are on the honesty scale. This was definitely a case where she was able to give me the answer I wanted to hear. You are physically attracted to him. You like to flirt with him. You send him sexy messages. And yet, you don't want to sleep with him. Is this the whole picture? Because I have to be honest with you, Selena, there are an awful lot of holes in this explanation that you need to fill. I felt my anger rising again, but I managed to grab it in time to calm down. I admit, I like flirting with Brian, but not because I want to have sex with him. I flirt with him because I like the fact that he wants to have sex with me. I nodded, letting her know to continue. I didn't like what I heard, but I had to listen to it. Brian is persistent. I can refuse him 5 times a night, and he still comes back for the 6th time. When a guy shows that kind of interest in me when he could have any woman in the hospital, it's flattering to say the least. Why do you need some asshole drooling all over you to feel sexy? You are the sexiest woman I have ever seen. She looked at me with a kind of sarcastic grin. Oh, really? You may be deceived. You seem to have almost no interest in me. You don't make me feel sexy. Now I was stunned. Is she trying to pin this on me? What do you mean? I always say that you are beautiful. I started to defend myself, and this is not at all what I wanted. I needed to control myself. You wanted honesty, Tony, so I'm giving it to you. Of course you say I'm beautiful. You say this every day. But I think you're saying this now because you have to. You don't make me feel this way lately. My anger slowly dissipated as I looked into her eyes. She spoke from the heart. She didn't try to blame everything on me. Her words were the feelings she hid behind that calm and collected mask she always wore. I nodded, indicating that it was okay to continue. Ever since I had girls, I don't feel sexy. I have stretch marks on my stomach, and no matter how much I run, I still have that little cushion on it. I couldn't believe the words coming out of her lips. This woman sitting in front of me was the epitome of sexuality. Every time I look at her, I have to mentally force myself not to attack her. If it were up to me, we would both quit our jobs and get out of bed only to eat, go to the toilet, and feed the girls. I had no idea she felt this way. How could this have escaped me? Selena never said anything, but there had to be some sign that she felt it. However, I missed them. When you have someone as confident as Selena, you always think that nothing will bother her. In our relationship, I was always the one who needed to be reassured. I wasn't blind to the fact that my wife was 10 times hotter than I actually deserved. She always made me feel worthy of her. I didn't realize that she needed the same thing. She continued, "Do you remember when we first started having sex? I couldn't take a shower without you wanting to be there with me. You watched me get dressed, and I felt lust in your gaze. God, how wet I was, teasing you. I was a little embarrassed. I didn't know that she saw me sneaking peeks at her. I was also taken aback that she was deliberately teasing me. Now I'm just the mother of your children. You no longer try to squeeze me when you pass by. You don't hug me just because you want to touch me. You didn't do that. Didn't find me sexy. After which she burst into tears. It hit me in the chest. I had no idea I had become so complacent. Selena is so beautiful that I thank God for her every day. I know she's completely out of my league. I still sit there in amazement and wonder how the hell I got her to love me. But over time, everything just became one of what just was. It was no longer one of the things that filled me with awe. I didn't even notice how my wife was shrinking before my eyes. Then she looked into my eyes with such a vulnerable look that my heart turned to mush. Even though I liked the attention I got from Brian, I never even thought about cheating on you. I will never give you up, especially for someone like him. I can't imagine life without you. And then the tears really started flowing. I must admit, I was starting to become convinced. I had one more question that was nagging me. Selena, if I hadn't intercepted the last message, would you have been turned on by his intimate photo? You said in one of your messages that he had a big one, but you could only see it in his pants. I didn't expect her to laugh, but that's exactly what she did. Of course, I said he was big, because that's what you guys want to hear. If a girl tells a guy he's big, he acts like he won the lottery. I wanted him to continue flirting with me without promising that I would sleep with him. Plus, it was just a smart response to his "it's hard to watch me go" comment. Her laughter stopped, and her face darkened with disgust. I didn't want him to send me intimate photographs. To be honest, I didn't even expect this. But I don't think I should be surprised. She shook her head, trying to get rid of the image. You know, I'm not the kind of girl who likes candid photographs of men and their junkies. I believe that less is more. We sat opposite each other, surrounded by silence. She didn't say anything else. She told me the honest truth and sat there, anxiously awaiting my answer. Without saying a word, I stood up, walked over to her, and sat down next to her on the sofa. I hugged her and squeezed her tightly. She just melted into my arms. I held her and rocked her while she cried on my shoulder. I didn't let her go until the crying stopped. I love you, Tony. I love you so much. I will never let another man think that I am free. I promise. I love you too, Selena. We hugged a little more, and then I leaned back and looked into her eyes. You understand that Brian is history, right? I can't guarantee that you will stay away from him at work. I have to trust you on this, but it's better for me not to find his messages on your phone anymore. She laughed again and hugged me tightly. Of course, baby, he's history. While you were upstairs, I called HR and asked if there was another floor where I could be assigned. They told me that they would have vacancies in mind. Then, after thinking, she added, and tomorrow, I will change the number. I would really like to say that everything is back to normal. I tried to forget about Brian and started trusting Selena again. But the more I tried to make everything normal, the more I failed. Selena actually changed her number, as she promised. Over the next 2 weeks, checking her phone became a nightly ritual. However, I gave it up. It was pointless. I didn't find anything incriminating, but was I really expecting something? If she was going to continue her relationship with Brian or anyone else, she sure as hell wouldn't get caught texting again. I had no other way to be sure of her fidelity, other than to trust her. But it was difficult to do this. Even though she didn't cheat, I had to constantly live with the fact that she found other guys attractive. I know it sounds stupid, but when you've been married for 10 years, you forget that your spouse has a working pair of E's and that you're not the only example of a man who makes them take a second look. I have had many conversations with my Yoda, and she has been very helpful. She just helped me get over the hump. I'm not sure I would have been able to put the past behind me if it weren't for her. She talked me out of doing really dark things, I felt the need for revenge and was going to go to the hospital with a crowbar and wait for Brian with his Mustang. I knew it was the one the moment I saw it. He had a bumper sticker that read, "Freedom isn't free," and a decal on his windshield, a pass to a naval base. Luckily, my sister reminded me that Cassie and Gabby wouldn't want to visit Dad in the big house. She asked if I wanted to introduce my family to my new boyfriend because it was a no-brainer that I would be someone's bitch there. I had to laugh. It wasn't until HR finally allowed her to switch floors with someone else that I calmed down. Selena pestered them almost every day until they did this. It was then that it dawned on me that she was serious. She loved the floor she worked on, and the patients missed her. The day before she switched places, they threw a small party for her. But she changed without hesitation. She told me she had no problem working with Brian and never speaking to him again, but she needed me to know that. For my part, I stepped up my game. I make it clear that my wife makes me excited, and I don't care who else finds out. When there are children in the room, I behave delicately. But if we are left alone, she has to constantly ensure that my caresses do not go too far. Although she doesn't actually handle it very well, it's like she's not even trying to stop me. As for Brian, I didn't have to retaliate. You see, karma usually finds a way to get the best of us. One evening, Brian was severely beaten in his Mustang. Some woman who works with my wife slept with Brian before he started hitting on her. I think her name was Wilma or something like that. Anyway, her husband ended up having the same idea as me, but his weapon of choice was a baseball bat. Brian turned out to be a patient at the same hospital where he worked. I know you guys would like to hear that he will never be able to have children or is forever crippled, but that is not the story. He came out a week later, but after that, he was no longer the same. Wilma's husband was arrested and sent to prison. I don't know how much, but I was glad that I had Master Yoda to talk me out of what I wanted to do. I just hope Wilma's husband doesn't become someone's bitch. Tony. Hello, sexy. Selena. Hello to you too. Tony. What are you wearing? Selena. Hospital suit. Tony. Damn, this turns me on. Selena. Take a photo and send it to me. Tony. I thought you said less is more. Selena. That's usually true, but you already have more. Selena. Wow, I can't believe you sent it. I'm so hot now, and when I get home and the girls go to bed, you'll get it all. I hope you ate your cereal. Tony. When you get home from work, I want you to wear this pink lingerie tonight. Selena. Baby, it doesn't fit me anymore. This thing has been too small for me since I got Gabby. Tony. That's why I chose him. Selena. You're so bad. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.